We have just begun the recording and want to welcome everybody. This is Russ Carnahan, co-founder of Building Action, with Andrew Goldberg, my co-founder. We are so pleased to be doing this webinar today that has some very excellent and timely guests, which you're going to hear about. Our goal is to keep this to about an hour. We're going to start with a panel, and then we're going to have the second part with Congresswoman Loretta Sanchez. We want to particularly thank the members of Building Action and our allies. Building Action was really launched in late 2019, officially began after several organizing meetings in early 2020. Like everyone else, we converted to do our activities instead of in person on the Hill, virtually, and we're beginning to come out of that slowly. But again, thank you everyone in building this bigger, better connected coalition in the building sector to really advance advocacy for green buildings in our country, but also learning from many new technologies and members and skill sets within the broader building sector. And that's why the webinar today is particularly on point because we're going to be learning from the mechanical insulators, the work they do, and the substantial impact that has on green buildings. So I want to recognize, to kick this off, the General President, Greg Rivard, and he's going to kick off this program. Greg, welcome. Thank you for being with us.
Well, thank you, Congressman Carnahan, for your kind introduction. And the Insulators Union is delighted to partner with Building Action for this important webinar to promote the value of mechanical insulation and its contribution to promote green buildings. You know, the insulators, since 1903, the Insulators Union members have been the original clean energy workforce that has always had the mission to save energy. And please allow me to inform you about our moderator, Gina Walsh. Before I introduce her, we are proud that Gina has been part of the Heat and Frost Insulators Union for over 40 years, pioneering herself from an apprentice of St. Louis Local 1 to the president of the Missouri State Building and Construction Trades Council. She additionally navigated herself into a political arena to become Missouri State Minority Senate floor leader after several years in Missouri General Assembly as Minority Caucus Vice Chair and Chief Deputy Whip. Gina is an inspiration to all, especially women, playing an active role in advancing employment opportunities for working families of our great country. It is my honor and pleasure to get her on my team as a Deputy Director of the Labor Management Cooperative Trust, where her experience and talents will assist others to recognize the magnitude in the advancement of the mechanical insulation industry. Gina is also currently working with the Trade Women Build Nations, educating and mentoring women on how to succeed in the construction and become leaders as well. And thank you all for participating in today's webinar about financing better buildings. And here is our moderator, Gina Walsh.
Gina, before you start, I just want to say a personal note. I served in our Missouri State Legislature with Gina. She's a personal friend and an incredible role model for women in public service and in the labor trades. Gina, thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Congressman Carnahan, and thank you, General President Rivard, for the very kind introduction. I'm pleased to serve as the moderator today on behalf of my partners at the LMCT, our director, Pete Alamini, and our governmental affairs director in Washington, Chip Gardner. As we work to build back better and transform our energy and power sector from fossil energy to cleaner sources of energy, it is imperative for our nation to recognize and fully deploy energy efficiency technologies like mechanical insulation. While the value of commercial and industrial insulation, collectively known as mechanical insulation, has been known for many years, it's often overlooked. Today's webinar will provide an overview on how mechanical insulation contributes to our national economic, energy, environmental goals. In addition to the information that will be discussed in today's webinar, I encourage you to visit our mechanical insulation LMCT website that is found on our Zoom wallpaper. Let's begin with an introduction of our expert panelists. First of all, our labor representative is Doug Gamble, General Secretary Treasurer of the Heat and Frost Insulators and Allied Trades. Secretary Gamble comes to the International from Local 7 in Seattle, Washington. Prior to his service as the General Secretary, he served our membership as Business Manager for Local 7. He was the first International Organizing Director for the Heat and Frost Insulators and served several terms as the Western States Conference International Vice President. Our contractor representative is Tom Dake II of Superior Industrial Insulation Company. Mr. Dake is the VP as well as an owner of Superior Industrial Insulation Company, headquartered in Cleveland, Ohio. He has a background in mechanical and electrical engineering, as well as public policy. Superior has been in the mechanical insulation and passive fire protection industry for more than 41 years. They have completed numerous projects to analyze and improve the efficiency of mechanical insulation in both the commercial and industrial applications. Our manufacturer representative is Brian Berquist from Owens Corning. Mr. Berquist is Owens Corning's regional sales leader for Canada and the Western United States. Owens Corning specializes in insulation products that provide solutions for commercial, industrial, and OEM applications, which is sound abatement. I'd like to return now to General Secretary Treasurer Gamble for his opening statement.
Good morning, and thank you, Gina. I appreciate it. As we look across the nation, what we don't often realize is there's over 5 million office buildings operating right now, 24,000 high schools, 6,000 hospitals, and over 5,000 colleges. In each one of those buildings, there's probably hundreds of thousands of miles of heating and cooling piping and air handling systems in buildings and industrial facilities throughout America. Every modern office building, hospital, school, college, and university has an existing climate control system that is most likely in need of repair of insulation in order to operate at maximum efficiency. If we're looking for a way to increase energy efficiency, reduce carbon emissions, upgrading an existing mechanical insulation system that's been damaged is an excellent way to start. And I believe that some of our other panel members will have some examples of where this has been tried and true. And it's something that if we're looking for a way to make an immediate impact, that's an excellent way to do it.
Thank you, General Secretary Gamble. Tom Dake, too, from Superior Industrial Insulation. Would you like to make your opening remarks?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us here. I'm happy to come and represent from the contracting standpoint in regards to mechanical insulation, which I feel is one of the best kept secrets out there in the construction world. It's one of the few trades, if you will, that and products that actually pay for itself as we go on here. And after our introductions there, I'm happy to share a few statistics, as far as how insulation can help pay for itself and help reduce CO2 emissions.
I'd like to remind everybody during the webinar, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat and we'll address them as they come in. Brian Berquist with Owens Corning. Would you like to?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you very much, Gina and Doug and the rest of us on the panel attendees. Great to be part of the discussion today, and a couple of topics that I'll discuss later throughout the discussion is CO2 emissions and how we can make a better United States, North America, by helping with CO2 reduction. and also touching briefly on the energy efficiencies and how we can improve those across North America. One of the key pieces I wanted to share what sustainability means to us in Owens Corning is becoming a net positive company for an aspiration and meeting the needs of the present while leaving the world a better place for the future. So as we discuss commercial buildings in particular, we'll talk about different percentages of CO2 emissions and energy efficiency that we can help improve.
Thank you, Brian. Doug, I have a couple questions for you.
Sure.
Why is mechanical insulation important to the environment and the economy?
Well, as I stated in my opening statement for the environment, there's over 5 million office buildings and hundreds of thousands of miles of piping and ductwork systems that are operating right now today. And during this heat wave, I'm sure that the AC units are being overworked in the Midwest and back east. And if that system is not insulated properly or is damaged, it's losing that ability to perform its primary function. And when it is not operating at maximum capacity, that makes us waste energy through lost heat and lost cooling procedures. That's why it's important to the environment to maximize the systems and the energy that we already have. As far as the economy itself, the Insulators Union is in need of personnel right now, in need of young people to enter this trade. And it's really an apprenticeship program is the other 4-year degree that we call it. It provides for employer on-the-job training, employer paid health insurance, pension benefits, a family living wage, and it's an excellent alternative to traditional college. Registered apprenticeship training programs provide training in the highest skill level, safest work environment, and highest graduation rates in the construction industry. Our programs also outreach to communities of color, women, and other disadvantaged groups for entry and a pathway to apprenticeship. Investment in the infrastructure of the mechanical insulation industry would create an excellent opportunity for jobs for people that college is not their destination. And again, that I believe that the skilled trades is really the wave of the future that we're going to need. All of our buildings, all of our facilities constantly need to be upgraded. And again, just to reiterate, our existing mechanical systems that are operating right now, they need to operate at maximum capacity. That in itself saves energy and helps the environment, reduces carbon emissions.
Thank you, Doug. To follow up on that, is our infrastructure, or are we prepared to field this workforce? Do we have the manpower to do it? And how are we going to educate them? How are our apprenticeship programs prepared to do that across the country?
A lot of our apprenticeship programs are involved in community groups, outreach to minority communities. A lot of our apprenticeship coordinators and committees participate in job fairs. I believe that our National Apprenticeship Director just met at the American School Counselors Association out in Las Vegas, trying to get that information out to everybody. And again, the trades are kind of one of the best kept secrets in America about a good family living wage job and a future. You know, it's hard work. It's not easy work. It's not sitting at a desk staring out a window. We expect our people to work. And again, in our organization, we have what we call the Professional Craftsman Code of Conduct, which promotes the highest quality of work, highest quantity of work. And we expect our members to conduct themselves in a professional manner on the job sites. And again, we're looking for people that want a committed career, a committed future, that are dependable, that have enthusiasm and want to build their career. And I've seen a lot of our members that have had a career in this trade, and they're able to retire with some dignity, able to retire with a good pension fund and enjoy life. So those are the types of people that we're looking for to enter this industry. And we're open for everybody. And all we ask is that you want to learn and you want to work, and you can have a good career in this industry or any of the skilled trade industries, actually. But I obviously believe my heart's with the insulators. I believe we're one of the best building trades going.
Thank you. This next set of questions is for all three. And I guess, Tom, if you'd like, you could answer it first. My first question is, what will the impact of mechanical insulation systems, what will the impact be on our communities if we employ these technologies?
It can have a very a large impact on our communities. Kind of building on what Doug had just said. I don't know if you can put that slide up there, Andrew, that just kind of shows an example here. But we have just to put together a quick slide here, just talking about 1 foot of bare pipe. Doug talked about all of those millions of miles, if you will, of pipe out there that's uninsulated. Just 1 foot of that costs about $317 a year of wasted energy, basically, that's going out into the air. Just putting a little bit of insulation on that 1 foot of pipe there basically takes it down to $18.59 a foot. I mean, it's a huge reduction, a huge savings of about $299 a foot, just doing some very quick math. One of the statistics that I like to use is that the average hospital out there has about 13 miles of pipe in it. And the Department of Energy says that anywhere between 10 and 30% of that pipe is uninsulated. And again, just doing some quick math at 3.9 miles of that pipe, that's about a $6.2 million savings per year just to insulate that. So that has a huge economic impact, and it has a huge environmental impact there, just putting on a little bit of insulation onto those pipes there. So that doesn't even begin to talk about the CO2 emission. So I'll turn that on. Brian can speak very well about the CO2 emissions there of fiberglass. So.
Thank you, Tom. Brian, would you like to respond?
Sure. That's an excellent slide that was just shown to show the efficiencies of what the cost is on a bare pipe. And going off of some of the detail that was shared there, for example, on a 4-inch bare pipe operating at 250 degrees, the efficiency is we'll call it 0. And if you put even 1 inch of insulation on that pipe, you're going to make it 88.73% efficient. So you're going to go from 531 BTUs down to 59 BTUs for efficiency. That's a drastic change. So obviously going up to 1.5 inch or 2-inch wall thickness is going to have a greater impact, but that was an excellent slide that was shown. Going into CO2 emissions, most folks in the construction industry have a pickup truck, and if you're driving a pickup truck for personal or business use, and we'll just say it's 20,000 miles per year, you're going to emit approximately 18,000 pounds of CO2. Okay, so we're all focusing on a carbon reduction, America, and how can we actually help in the building trade? And when you think of automotive use, transportation represents about 37% of greenhouse gas reduction opportunity. And we don't think of commercial buildings, for example, as being part of CO2 reduction, but commercial buildings represent approximately 35% of opportunity to reduce CO2 emissions. So going back to this slide, if you have 20,000 miles, 18,000 pounds of CO2 that's emitted, we could offset that by planting 360 trees or replacing 130 60-watt light bulbs with LED light bulbs, or we can simply insulate 8 feet of bare 4-inch pipe operating at 350 degrees with 2 inches of insulation. So what is easier, to replace 131 light bulbs, plant 360 trees, or simply insulate 8 feet of a 4-inch pipe operating at 350 degrees? That's a substantial comparison, and think about that, how much of an impact we can have on insulation in commercial buildings.
So our panelists know the importance of a mechanical insulation system, and this is to whoever wants to answer it. But once a mechanical insulation system is in place at a structure, how important and how labor intensive is the maintenance on that system?
Is that open for anybody, Gina, or?
Open for anybody.
Yeah.
Jump
You know,
right in,
let me
Doug.
just real quick, I'll briefly go in. I was involved in an energy evaluation with the Montana State Capitol about 10 years ago. And immediately, once we walked into the boiler room, we could identify at least 4 to 5 places where there was insulation that was hanging on, off, a steam valve that was uninsulated. Within 10 minutes, we could evaluate what needed to be happened to save that energy that we had just talked about. And again, just to reiterate, over 5 million office buildings, even if 1% of those office buildings, the engineer or business building manager went through and looked and took a quick look, that would be an immediate savings. It's not very difficult at all. It's actually pretty easy to do, to identify what we call the low-hanging fruit. Wouldn't take much to go into the mechanical room and take a quick look and figure out what's going on. And again, our contractor groups have people that specialize in that. Will come and do a free energy audit, calculate exactly how much energy you're losing, what the investment would be to recoup that energy, and the payback. We have people that are experts in that, and our LMCT director is in the developmental stage of training people that do insulation evaluations that could come out and do that. So again, even if 1% of the 5 million office buildings did that, we're talking 50,000 buildings, today. By the end of the week, there would be a tremendous amount of energy saved. It's pretty easy to figure out and go through. But again, our contractors have a special program to where they can show the actual numbers and put together a comprehensive program. And I believe some of our contractors have already done that. I don't know, Tom, if you have an example of something that you may have done with a major university or.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we just recently, while we're in the middle of working with a major university here in Ohio, doing those assessments, and we're going in, and their average payback period is going to be less than 10 months for them to pay for all of the work that's being done. Another quick example I can give is there's an industrial facility we did some work in, and by the time it took them to pay their bill within 30 days, not only had they paid for the insulation work that was done, but they were already well on their way to saving money with it. And the cool thing about this is, I saw there was some information that popped up about the building envelope system. We work in conjunction with that. I mean, this is in addition to what you would have in the building envelope structure. The temperatures and whatnot that are maintained in that building, of course, are important, because as we know, wet and damaged insulation, you might as well not have anything on it. So it all works in harmony with each other, if you will. And it just keeps adding on those savings on top of everything.
So Brian, I have a question for you. What is the life cycle of a mechanical insulation system? In other words, you insulate that pipe that Doug was talking about in the boiler room in the Montana State Capitol. It's maintained. What is the life cycle of that product?
Life cycle typically is, as long as it's not going to be damaged or disrupted within the building. I mean, it could be a wide variation depending on temperature and so forth. I mean, with the new polymer jackets that we have on the pipe insulation today, it really provides a better life cycle than the previous versions of paper jackets. So paper jacket it could have been a food source for mold and bacteria, where a polymer jacket now can actually last much longer than a paper jacket. So the life cycle is viewed much longer than previous years. This polymer jacket came out approximately 5 years ago. So it's improved the industry drastically as it relates to the pipe insulation. So as long as it's kept and not damaged, I mean, you're going to be 30 years beyond, 50 years beyond. I mean, it just depends. I mean, there could be vibration and movement of pipes. So it's just hard to put a pinpoint of a specific year for a life cycle. So, just a straight answer to give you, it could be, 30 years plus, as long as it's not damaged or disrupted.
So energy efficiency is usually linked in our community to carbon technologies. But as the country moves forward to a carbon-free society, what role will we play? What will our technologies look like in the mechanical insulation business? Anybody?
Well, I think one of the things, Gina, that what we run into, just a little bit off of topic, is we'll go through and do these evaluations, and a lot of times the client or something says, well, that's great, I'd like to, but there's no money in the budget. What's my incentive to do that? And I believe that Congresswoman Sanchez is going to speak a little bit about the mechanical insulation incentive bill that's pending in Congress right now, which would be an incentive for these building owners and plant managers if they do invest in upgrading their mechanical system. There's some tax relief on that, and we believe that's a very important part of this component. But again, I think we all understand that there's a tremendous amount of energy being used every day. The more efficiently that we can use that energy that we have existing right now, it is there right now. These are shovel-ready jobs that are ready to go with a quick evaluation. There's a tremendous amount of energy that could be saved if we're looking for immediate payback. But again, one of the problems we've run into is a lot of times there's been no incentive to do that. And we run into the problem of, well, there's no money in the budget. Maybe next year, if we had something like that with governmental assistance and a focus on the value of this, I think it would help enhance and increase the utilization of what we're trying to do.
Thanks, Doug. Tom, Dave, as we move forward in our industry, we are still going to need insulation. People need to understand that just because we move from fossil fuels to a more carbon-free society, we still need to build the infrastructure. We still need to transport that energy source from point A to point B. So will the technologies evolve or change as we move forward, as you see it as a contractor?
Yes, and with that comes a lot of the materials that are actually being used out there for insulation are getting better and better as time goes on. I know when I started in the industry, there were some products that are on the market now that hadn't existed at that point in time, and they're new to the market now, and they're much more efficient and offer a higher R value for less space, if you will. You know, you look at our building spaces is at a premium because we want to see, you know, the wide open spaces. You don't always want to see those duct pieces there, or the pipe that's running through, and we know in the trade here too, they don't always leave enough room for us to put the right amount of insulation on. So as time goes on and things get more efficient and the products evolve, you know, I see us, you know, being able to keep up, to adapt with the industry and maintain these savings that are out there for building owners. I mean, as Doug had talked about too, you know, this is a continuing maintenance thing. You still have to look at this on a frequent basis because let's face it, things change, conditions change in our buildings. So this is a continuous life cycle. You're not going to look at it now and then all of a sudden, you know, 2 years from now, it'd be the same way. It's always going to be changing. So it's important that we change with it.
Thank you. Brian, would you like to respond to that?
Sure. You know, going off of, you know, what Tom was sharing, I'm always advocate of installing a polymer jacket. All the manufacturers actually have a polymer jacket, so I'm not stating one product that a manufacturer may not have. But when you look at the efficiencies and how we can have the biggest impact in our industry is looking at, okay, are we installing a 1/2 inch wall, a 1 inch wall thickness of insulation, 1.5 inches, 2 inch? What is the right measuring tool for that efficiency that building owners would want, and how can we drive that initiative? And going off of what Tom was sharing, a lot of times from a contractor's perspective and the manufacturer is they don't have the space to install maybe a 90% efficient product. And so we're working with the engineering firms to help drive the space needed in the mechanical space so they can become more efficient in driving that spec work and helping the contractor and helping our industry become more efficient. So we're also improving products that Tom had mentioned, coming out with more efficient products. And that goes from fiberglass, mineral wool, extruded polystyrene, foam glass, and so forth. So there's a wide variety of products that are offered in the industry that we can help with the efficiency along with installation.
Thanks, Brian. You want to speak a little bit just for our attendees Real quick, never mind. I think we're ready to move forward. I did want you to explain what a polymer jacketing is. Us in the industry do know what it is, but a lot of our attendees may not. But it is what you use to seal that insulation product as you apply it.
Yeah, it's real quick. It's a plastic that's actually on the outside of the jacket, so it can shed water easily. It's not a paper exterior; it's a plastic exterior, so we call it a polymer jacket.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think we're ready to go back to Greg right now. I see that Representative Sanchez is on the screen, and I'll turn it back over to Greg Rivard.
Okay, well, thank you, Gina, and to the panelists for your excellent discussion about the value of mechanical insulation, how mechanical insulation promotes green buildings. And at this time, I'm very pleased and honored to introduce our featured speaker, Congresswoman Linda Sanchez, who represents California's 38th Congressional District. Long before her service in the House, Congresswoman Sanchez was utilizing her skills as an advocate for union construction and as a lawyer for the IBEW. As a senior member of the House Ways and Means Committee and Select Revenue Subcommittee, Congresswoman Sanchez is a key policymaker who has an important seat at the table in developing clean energy tax policy. The Insulators Union greatly appreciates Congresswoman Sanchez's leadership as sponsor of the mechanical insulation tax installation credit legislation, which she has introduced in the previous Congress. As a result of her outstanding work, mechanical insulation tax credits were included in last year in the House Ways and Means Committee Green Bill and the House Representatives Comprehensive Infrastructure Bill. This year, Congresswoman Sanchez has once again been successful with the inclusion of mechanical insulation tax incentive in the 2021 Green Bill. Congresswoman Sanchez understands the great need for the deployment of existing energy efficiency technologies like mechanical insulation that can help our nation create good paying jobs, save energy, and make our economy more competitive and achieve the urgent need to reduce carbon emissions. Thank you, Congresswoman Sanchez, for your superb leadership and promotion of mechanical insulation and for participating in today's webinar. And it is my personal privilege to welcome Congresswoman Sanchez.
Thank you so much, Gregory. I want to thank all of our panelists and attendees for joining us in today's important conversation. And just a quick shout out to Russ, who I've not seen in a while. Good to see you, brother. And also to Chip, who I know is also participating today. I'm sure it's not a big surprise that all eyes are on infrastructure right now, and it's really our opportunity to transform our country. Our climate emergency isn't going to get better on its own, so we have to deal with the defining challenge of our time. And as a co-chair of the Congressional Labor Caucus, as a proud IBEW member, and the former head of a Central Labor Council, I firmly believe that we have to do many important things, but in a way that supports workers and that really helps working families and provides them with opportunities. I'm proud to serve on the Ways and Means Committee, where we are going to play a really important role in how we are going to deliver these investments. And one of our most important tasks on the Ways and Means Committee is figuring out a way to pay for this package of really great policies that we want to implement. But we are committed to making profound investments through our tax code, because we need to use every single tool that we have at our disposal to eliminate emissions and to make sure that working communities benefit from a 21st century energy system. The lowest hanging fruit that we have is energy efficiency. So it's the best place to start. When communities consume less energy, the dividends are paid over and over again in lower utility bills and fewer emissions. So you get win-win situation. But there can and should be a third benefit, and this is really critical: good paying jobs. That's why I have been proud to champion the piece of the Green Act that we are focusing on today, because the new tax credit would spur investment in all manner of buildings to conserve the energy that we lose every second in those buildings from pipes and equipment. I know it sounds a little nerdy to talk about mechanical insulation, but it's really sexy when you kind of think about all of the benefits that it provides. And doing insulation is a piece of energy efficiency that we often overlook because it just seems very basic, right? But it's a great source of good paying union jobs. Finally, it's an example of the many different threads that we have to weave together if we're going to stop climate change. So I want to thank you all again for taking the time to drill down on this important policy, and I'm really looking forward to the discussion ahead.
Thank you, Congresswoman Sanchez, and welcome. I've been waiting for weeks to say to you, welcome, sister, as a member of the IBEW, to this webinar. We do have a few questions for you. If you wouldn't mind taking the time to answer them, we want to be respectful of your time. How did you first become aware of or engaged with the mechanical insulation industry?
Well, as I mentioned prior, I started my career as a member of IBEW. And so the building trades have always been important to me and to the community that I represent. In 2013, I served as the co-chair of the House Ways and Means Manufacturing Working Group. And as part of that working group, we invited building trades and unions to bring their recommendations to me. And that's when I first learned about the need to incentivize this important energy efficiency technology. So I reached out to several Republican colleagues to work with me to refine the idea a bit. That was former Senator Dole, Representative Meehan, and Representative Reed. It had bipartisan support because it's just very basic common sense to help small businesses save money on their utility bills and at the same time creating good paying union jobs. So that's kind of how I came into learning about insulation.
So even before the pandemic, the building sector was facing workforce shortages. What can Congress do to make sure there is a full pipeline of qualified workers ready to take on these building projects?
Sure. Well, we know that it takes time to build those apprenticeship pipelines, and we really have to get serious about it. And that's why soon I'm going to be reintroducing a bipartisan bill that I have to provide tax credits for businesses who hire individuals who are enrolled in a federal or state registered apprenticeship program. But we also need to link the investments we make in our infrastructure with registered apprenticeship programs where they already do exist. And that's why I'm working to ensure that credits that we are going to be creating in the Infrastructure and Jobs Plan incorporate very strong apprenticeship provisions. But a lot of it too is just making people aware that there are great careers out there that are alternatives to college. And I tell this story all the time. I used to do a big event in my district every year for the parents of middle school students, and it was called Preparing Your Children for College, so that parents would know what classes their children needed to take in high school in order to get into college. And then I realized, every child is college bound. Not every kid wants to go to college. We need to provide really great ideas for great careers that exist out there. So we do also now another event called Great Careers That Don't Require a 4-year degree. And I invite all of the building and construction trades to come in and set up, tables so that kids can see there are really great careers out there. And their parents oftentimes are the ones that thank me the most. They're like, wow, we had no idea that there were all these other good paying careers out there that were options for my child. So word of mouth and advertising. Also, we need to, not be ashamed to say that a skilled trade is a great job. I mean, I'm an attorney by training, but when my plumbing doesn't work, I got to call a skilled tradesman out to fix it. So everybody has an important role to play. And I think apprenticeship programs sometimes are the best kept secrets, and we need to brag about them a lot more.
I absolutely agree. And our General Secretary Treasurer earlier today, he's coined a phrase, the other 4-year degree.
That's right. That's
and
right.
It's quite labor intensive, and it's a very good deep dive. It's very good education. Making buildings more energy efficient is a relatively easy way to meet our climate goals, not to mention creating more well-paying jobs. How can the building sector make sure that Congress and the White House include robust building-related provisions in the infrastructure packages they are negotiating?
Yeah, that is really a great question. We have a real opportunity here, but we need folks to weigh in and let the administration and members of Congress know that we have to have robust building-related provisions in the infrastructure packages, because it's one thing to make those investments, but we want to make those investments smart. And with narrow majorities in both chambers of Congress on every issue, it's important that we reach out to every member and not just preach to the choir or to the folks that we already know that our thinking is aligned with. I mentioned that I'm one of the co-chairs of the Congressional Labor Caucus, and there are a lot of members who already are committed to supporting the building trades and supporting building-related provisions in the infrastructure bill. So we have to have broad support across our caucus. We have to try to get support from both sides of the aisle. And so, you know, as vocal as you can be about the need to include those provisions, I think the more that they will be foremost in people's minds when we're in the negotiations for those bills.
Thank you. You've been a champion of mechanical insulation and the proposed tax incentive for a number of years and have successfully got it included in House passed infrastructure legislation like last year's Moving Forward Act. To outsiders, it can feel frustrating when common sense, bipartisan legislation that gets held up by gridlock. What do you say to people who at times feel discouraged that it takes so long to enact good legislation?
Oh, I get that question a lot. And I tell people that legislating is a marathon, not a sprint. You know, we live in a democracy, and democracy means that people have differing opinions and you have to negotiate. And that process can sometimes seem a little messy, especially with a country as big and as diverse as ours is. And it can take a long time to push good ideas across the finish line. You know, but it just takes building on success, you know, sort of getting the momentum and then finally getting a bill over that finish line. But we have to, you know, not be shy about laying the groundwork for policies that are really going to make a big difference in our country and to so many working Americans. And then, you know, you look for those opportunities when the stars and the planets align, and then you can get this done, and the impact, the positive impact of this can be felt for generations to come. So it's about patience, it's about tenacity, building momentum, and then, you know, pushing as hard as you can when that window of opportunity opens to get it through that window before it closes.
Thank you. When do you expect the House to consider the Green Bill and the larger budget reconciliation bill?
Yeah, so this week we are waiting to see what the Senate negotiations provide, and we are in this week. The Congress is in this week to pass appropriations bills. So we're here until Friday, and then we leave on August work period. My best guess is that the Senate is in next week. My best guess is that the Senate will wrap up their work next week. And so I'm looking at, you know, we may be called back in August to, you know, pass our side of it, or that could even float into, you know, first part of September possibly. But it's coming up quick.
Well, that's good. We need things to start moving across this country for our economy and to move into a green future. To make
Amen,
it a healthy,
sister.
Yeah, healthy place for all of us. Congresswoman Sanchez, I want to thank you for your time. You've been more than generous. I know the rigors, a smaller scale of serving in such a body, and your time is never your own. And I really appreciate you explaining the life cycle of a bill and how it is marathon and not a sprint, because when you're in the middle of it, it's really difficult to stop and explain the mechanics to everybody. And it seems like you live in a bubble and you assume everybody knows what's going on around you. But thank you so much for your time. As a woman, I look forward to working with you in the future, and I am very happy and thankful for the work you do on behalf of mechanical insulation and on the behalf of my union that I'm very proud to be a member of. And I will turn it back over to Congressman Carnahan.
Thank you, Gina. Thank you, Representative Sanchez. It's great to see you and see your continued leadership. Just can't tell you how much it means, I think, to the folks here. You and the panelists have really made the point that the mechanical insulation is a key part of our building strategies, and you have been a champion in making the point in these infrastructure bills that buildings are a critical part of infrastructure. So thank you for being a part of that. And the Building Action Coalition is going to be steadily making that point and backing you up. So let us know what else we can do with the coalition. And best to you.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure being with you. Russ, we missed you out on the baseball field. We had baseball practice this morning.
We'll come to you.
Everybody stay well. Take care.
All right. And thanks to everyone who's joined us. We hope this has really been insightful in terms of representatives being on the front lines in the Congress and the states, and certainly the insulators, the expertise that they brought to this. I think it's very important, and want to encourage everyone to reach out to the insulators or to our coalition if we can be of any assistance. Please go to the Building Action website at buildingaction.org. If you're not a member, please join us as a member or an ally to continue to grow and strengthen the Building Action Coalition for our advocacy in Washington. To really take advantage of these unique opportunities that are on the plate of policymakers. Best to you, and we look forward to talking with you again soon.